Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hamster's Hobby Hang. Been a little bit. For those of you that celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you had a great holiday. And if you don't, I hope you just had a great regular Thursday. Hello, hello. So I'm back with the Skellies. Critical Role, nice. Way back now, we had a really awesome privilege uh, with Dwarven Forge. Critical Role was doing, I think it was their first live show at this theater like way uptown, and they visited the studio and got us tickets to that. And that was, I actually haven't watched a lot of Critical Role, honestly, but the energy at the live show was incredible. And that was a lot of fun. I've watched a little bit of the Dropout live play. Well, I watched one campaign mostly because one of my favorite comedians on there was in it. It was the Never Stop Blowing Up one, if you've heard of that, which is like an action movie like Die Hard RPG. That was a lot of fun. I'm trying some different stuff on these skellies. I've done a little art, study. Got some books, found some new videos. So I've actually started these out. I had these already kind of painted with a little undercoat, but I started with satin varnish, and I'll tell you why. With any matte painting, the colors kind of appear lighter. It's hard to make the darkest darks show through. So I was actually looking into gouache, which is like matte, opaque watercolor, and I use acrylic gouache here just because it's similar to mini paints in that it's fairly matte and somewhat fluid, I guess, but not like the satiny artist paint fluid. It's not like heavy body acrylic, but it's still matte like mini paints are. And so I thought, okay, a lot of painters will, like canvas painters will finish the painting with the satin varnish because it brings the darks back out. When they say it like, oh, it makes your colors look different, it like makes them like more powerful and better for whatever reason. It's because the darks appear darker than matte, and it's the same reason why sometimes you hear about. I think I put this together. When you do a matte varnish and it's people say their minis look frosted. Well, with minis, sometimes if there's like a lot of accumulation, there might be like a weird white deposit from like the physical varnish, but it's really just your colors became more matte. And so they look almost like, I don't want to say grayer, but I think you know what I mean, like hazy kind of. Um, and so that's why putting satin varnish over it fixes it. And then you can even do a lesser coat of matte over it and make it matte again. But so I figured instead of finishing the painting with satin, if I still want the paintedness to be matte because you can see it better on a small thing, that's why I think we like matte paints. Maybe I'll start with satin just because I painted this with matte paint and I can already tell it looks darker. And then, we can paint over it. So maybe it will look strange because there'll be multiple finishes, which is also the idea of a unifying varnish at the end. Who knows? But it will probably mostly stay in, the deepest shadows, which will just appear dark. So I'm trying it out. We'll see. Thought it'd be interesting, and I had the satin sitting here. Oh yeah, it's super cool seeing Dwarven Forge on there. And I'm also trying out a different palette slightly. If you don't know, I kind of just keep limited paints here for Hobby Hang and mix them, which is a lot of fun. And if you ever want to learn that, what I did, it was kind of forced where I was like, well, I can't have a bunch of crap here, so I better just put some paints out on the palette and sit down and paint the mini and figure it out. And that was a number of years ago, and now I prefer painting that way. uh, but let's see. Normally I pull out what I normally have. And the reason, if you've ever tried to mix with miniature paints, the reason it's tough is because they're all a mix of pigments. So like, if you mix red and blue, it's probably going to get a purple, but sometimes it strays weirdly. It's because there's more than one pigment in the paint, so you're not just mixing a pure blue of some kind and a pure red. And so it can go haywire. Primarily, the mixes have some amount of white mixed in them. To get different shades. You're doing the triad thing or whatever, right? And so it can get kind of like desaturated and gray unexpectedly. Brushes, I do a ton of work with just these cheapo ones. I just have this like I have this at the studio also. You can see how many I've used. But Golden Taklon, this yellow version, is kind of the right snap that I like. You can get softer ones too, but it's a synthetic brush. But the Golden Taklon is like a stiffness that I kind of like, as opposed to super duper soft. So I do a ton with this. And then I normally just have a couple, like a number 2 and a number 0. Now the sizes vary between them. Like I have a number 1 that's really close to number 0. These happen to be Rosemary & Co. I'm pretty sure Michigan Toy Soldier is Rosemary & Co. I've noticed it's hard. It's probably harder now, even, to get these in the US. But somehow they like source, or it's like the same factory or something at Michigan, so. But I pretty much just, any natural hair sable that's affordable. I'm not super attached to a particular brand. Where's the one that I like? Oh, these are all Michigan toys. I think at Adepticon I just like grabbed a bunch of them because they were sitting there at their booth. This one's kind of frayed out right now. But this is just like a random pack I found on Amazon or something that was really cheap. And I was like, okay, how bad could it be? And it's been phenomenal for minis. So just look for Kolinsky Sable around. And any pack that shows up, I've seen a lot of ads for like that Golden Maple brand, which is a similar like kind of affordable brand online. This is the one I was looking for, Raphael 8404 model. But I pretty much just keep a number 1 and a number 0 around. Even the number 2 I don't quite use as much, because at that point I'll just like use the cheapo thing. For small minis, obviously if you're doing like a large, something like your large scale or whatever, you want something bigger available. But I do like this, and I was getting it like, this is gonna be my brush, but they are expensive. Like I spend like $20 minimum on one of these, if not more, like 28. So it's hard to keep up with that. I think I got a pack in here that was like really, really super cheap, and I think it was too cheap. This one I haven't used, but it's like not even branded in any way, really. And I think that one kind of just like broke down on me really fast. But from here I typically don't even look for whichever brand. I just like look for the size. So I can't say I'm attached to certain brands, but I would say if you're looking to get into natural hair and you want that sharp point, just look for any Kolinsky Sable that you can replace. It's like accessible in your area or your local art store or where you shop online, and just try those out. If I were to get 2 of them, I'd probably go 1 or 0. One of the 3. 2, 1, 0. I don't really use smaller. even for eyes and stuff, because the points are so sharp. Some ones are closer to twos or to zero, so you know, take your pick. But this number 2 size, I probably use a little less. This one is a smaller. See, these are both number 2s, so you can kind of see an example of like the difference. Look at that, right? Hugely different. So anyway, this is probably the biggest I normally do for this style that you've seen on here. Just like the kind of sketchy layering. It's probably the smallest I go. And I'll start with that. I kind of start with broadly with something like this, go to this, and then to 0. Yeah. But really, it's hard to go wrong once you get into natural hair territory, because, you know, if they were absolute crap that broke down, I don't think they would like successfully sell them, really, you know, sometimes. But so the best thing is to just, once you get one with that natural hair, just find one and practice with it and see what you like. And if you notice, you know, something you don't like about it, like for certain uses, some people, if they get into the size 2, they want a bigger belly to hold more paint. Maybe you want that when you're in the size 2 territory. Some like their small detail ones a little bit longer. I kind of like the stubbiness of this. It's kind of just right for me. It's not super stubby, but so you know, the last thing you want to do is to see a paint brand on like YouTube or paintbrush brand and be like, I don't like this. I don't get why it's so good. It's like, well, that means you have a preference and you've learned that, right? So which is great. That's what I've done over the years. And try something else out. But yeah, the main things that I like are Golden Taklon, cheap synthetics, and Kolinsky Sable. In about these sizes. Like, these were sitting on my desk already. This is pretty much for like the humanoid size, you know, your average size mini. I mean, I don't even want to say humanoid, like even this bigger guy I was working on, I was doing with that. Oh my gosh, I forgot I did this. I was like, he was like spinning around, but still attached. I was like, what is that? I did a magnet thing, I guess. I haven't touched that one in a while. Okay, so for my piece, what was I doing? I got this new shelf sitting here, which is nice. It was actually at the office, and Mace was gonna toss it, you know, because she was organizing. I was like, I will take that. So I'd probably start with something like this. Some primaries here. I know this one is kind of confusing, but it's sort of doing the cyan, magenta, yellow thing that's been going around. It's also a single pigment, strangely. It looks like it has white in it. But, you know, it's a really, like, this color is, like, really magical, you know? Kind of magic effect is it good to have, like, that super bright opaque thing. And these brands are just fluid matte. You know, that's why I use them. It's not, if you find, you know, I think even hobby brands are starting to do single or 2 pigment kind of paints, so the brand doesn't really matter. But primaries here, I do have a darker kind of ultramarine blue. You know, when I can't quite mix a cool thing, you know, with that. And then I have this red because it's really hard to get an orange with this cool. Both of these are pretty like cool temperature, so it just gets kind of muddy when you mix them. So this is a really bright orangey red. And then this is basically my black and white. I have a purple here. Sorry, I'm not used to the camera with the shelf. just because it's my darkest, one of my darkest that I have, and then it keeps me away from black, which makes things kind of just blah sometimes. So, and then if you want to do a purple, it's pretty common in fantasy stuff. So, have a purple. Titanium white's the most opaque white. It's great. And then a burnt umber can also be one of your darkest paints for almost black, and you can mix these together to make it even darker looking kind of black. Good to have an earth tone. It's just a good solid brown for your leather pouches, and it's obviously it's got a few pigments, but it's one of those common artist palette earth tones to mix. And then I do have these if I need them, just a green if I'm going to be painting a lot of green stuff in the mini. Otherwise I'll just mix it, but if like it's a main color in the mini, I have this I'll pull out. And then an orange, just because we were talking about orange. You know, if I need to paint orange, I just have it ready to go. And cadmium is toxic, so look out for that. But like if you're putting it in your mouth, you know, because I haven't been putting my brush in my mouth since I put this on my desk, because I don't want to, God forbid, you know, have to be using it and then yeah. But cadmium, one of its biggest strengths is it's the most opaque, and I don't have to tell you guys, right? Like yellow and orange, like paints with yellow in them, frickin' suck for opacity, you know. It's just the nature of the pigment of the pigment. So this is just a really opaque orange if I need to hit those like highlights that are bright orange. But I'll start with this stuff. Oh, and I have a warmer yellow too. I pretty commonly put that next to the cool yellow, just if I want to mix something, you know. We have a lot of warm stuff, you know, your leathers and your organic stuff. If it's fur, you know, you might want a cooler or a warmer yellow. But so I was looking at stuff, and I think I'm gonna try out not the burnt umber, but burnt sienna and viridian. There's some combinations where you can get similar stuff with this plus some of the rest of this. So I just want to try that, because I do love this color, but it doesn't do the thing of this is your black in some cases, but it can mix a black and then still have a more vibrant red kind of earth tone available. So anyway, I'm just going to switch those out and see how we do. And maybe even I'll take out this, because if we want to mix something warm red, maybe this will do it. We'll see. You know, we can always pull these out if we really need to, but it's just an interesting challenge to kind of limit, and that's when I learn the most, you know. Yellow ochre is commonly used on palettes, and I used to always have it, but I was kind of using it for everything, so I put it away and tried to mix more. But I had it the other day because I had a mini that was using like almost this color purely for certain elements. And maybe we'll put that on the palette. So maybe instead of the warm yellow, I'll put yellow ochre even. So now we have similar primaries, the same primaries, along with our cool blue. So the rule of, like, basically the perfect palette almost is for each color, you know, red, green, purple, orange, you have a warm version and a cool version, and then plus your earth tones. And then you can mix pretty much anything. But then how painters of yore, you know, have limited their palettes, kind of became their signature style. So it's kind of fun to, you know, if you've seen mini painting videos on the Zorn palette, that was a limited palette that often came from like the price of the pigments to make them. You know, they're grinding them up, and how do you source the material to get the color? Certain things would be super duper expensive, so they would limit their palettes and just use those and learn how to mix with that limited palette, so they could keep it more affordable. And when it became their style, then they're just like, great, all right, I'll keep doing that. But the perfect palette is a warm and cool of each color, pretty much. At least of the primaries for sure. And then I don't have an ivory black. This is a Mars black. This is generally more opaque. And I pretty much just use this for the base rooms nowadays. But I don't know if it'll work with this black. I'm going to try it. I basically challenged myself to cut black from the palette so I don't mix shadows with it. Because it just kind of makes them, kind of deadens the color. But I saw someone that said, and they heard this from their art teacher, which was, have black on your palette, but you don't use it for black. You use it as a blue. So it's kind of like the gray mentality, if you've heard this before, just relative to all the other colors on the color wheel. Gray is blue. And what they mean is in context. Like if you put gray next to yellow, it's going to look bluer. Next to red, bluer. Next to green, bluer. And so for mixing, they were using black, obviously small amounts, but you know, with something like this, would mix a very desaturated green, useful for grass, you know, things you might imagine in fantasy adventure, you know, your drab green cloak and stuff. So I thought I'd maybe try some of that. I don't know if we're even gonna get to it on some of this stuff, but I'm just switching it up because I've used the same paints for like a year now at least, not more. I don't know if all that theory is interesting. Sorry if you're asleep now, but and also we're still painting minis, right? I have the full suite of fluorescent colors over here for any glows. You know, sometimes I'll paint a glow just with regular paints, but it really does add that extra pop just because like how it physically absorbs light. You know, to get something like this, I actually painted it with just my paints. And then I was like, all right, I could just push it to the next level though if I literally just leave it as is and then make the eyes like fluorescent red. Payne's Gray is phenomenal. That's another great example of a color that can act as black. It's very dark, so it's going to get like your values of your darkest shadows, but it has that color identity still, that little pop of something to it, where it's not just void of all color. So that is a great example. I've gone through much Payne's Gray ink in my time. Honestly, I was bad at it too, and there's no way around it. It is very frustrating for a long time. At least it was for me. And it more so like we have intuitively, or like at least from schooling or whatever, we know like the very basics, right? Like blue and yellow makes green. But then when you start to like you start being like, I'm trying to get this specific thing and I can't get it to, that's when you learn. And that's where when you learn your specific palette. Like not every painter uses these exact blues, for example. This is just what I've seen and I've been trying out for a while, because they prefer certain like kind of mixtures or like the territory of a certain color, and they're like, I can mix that better with this available on the palette. It's just really intriguing. It's really interesting to watch painters and to see how they do it, and the smallest thing can like make such a big difference. And it's fun too because these are from like a starter set, these little ones, and I was always like, why do they have some of these in here? Like this Viridian, like why don't you just give like a green? If you want to put green in, put green. And literally today I saw this guy talking specifically about Viridian, and I was like, oh, it's just, they're like, well, I want to have this combination available, this mixture. And I was like, it was like if you have the cool yellow, you can kind of get this to mix into a green. Or you can mix a good enough green like with your blue and your yellow available, but then this combo will do XYZ. It will do something different, like your blackest black. Um, and my blackest black I was doing was something like this, or this. So it's just all different routes to the same path, but that's what makes it kind of fun. In fact, maybe I won't even touch the purple much. We already have a bunch of purplishness on the base coat. So maybe that will be a fun little challenge too. Gotta have white. I've cut black from the palette, but you gotta have white. I was thinking about, I say this every time, I was thinking about setting up like a palette camera, see the mixing, just put it like in the corner there, but I haven't set it up. I have an extra webcam, but with the lamp and the mic, and I have two camera stands here, one like holds a phone, starting to get a lot on the desk, so. I'm excited though. It's just like, it's almost like brand new territory. And what I like about my evolution with this burnt sienna is I used to just be like, well, I figured out the palette that I think I like, but I miss this, just using it almost as is for certain things. So I'm gonna put it also on that. And my goal was to like limit the colors just for fun and see how I can pare it down to like keep the hobby hang palette you know, stocked. And so this is always kind of like an outlier. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna throw it on there because I like it. And now I have well, I'm gonna experiment today, but I have a little more of a sense of like why it's utilized on people's palettes. So that's kind of fun. So what do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colors plus black and white. So I mean that's pretty good, right? 10 colors, 10 paints. And what I'll say is too, I mean, don't do what I did. I bought so many hobby paints by the set. You know, you see a cool thing and you're like, well, I might as well buy the set because it's cheaper per bottle. But then I wouldn't use any of them. So I would always grab like your primaries. If you're trying to try a paint brand, just get like either one of two ways. Get a couple of main colors that you're painting for an idea. For like a warband, if it's primarily green, get a couple greens, try it out. Otherwise, just try some primaries to fool around with. And you don't have to mix. But just like buy 2 or 3 in that way, and then try it out. But what I was gonna say is like, you know, I've learned to like pare down my paints, and I like mixing. But the pre-mixes are still valuable, especially for like army painting, right? If you want it to be exact and to keep it cohesive, you could even mix a test model or 2 or 3, and they'd be like, I like this, and then go find pre-mixes from your hobby brands, right? So that you're not spending the time mixing. So I still use premixes uh, once in a while on that front. But I do have a dream of an army being painted how you see on Hobby Hang, just like sketch layering and making them all a little different. Even if it is like a Space Marine armor thing, where the slight variations, they're going to be inspired like they're the same army, but the slight variations might be kind of cool across like 50 plus models. If the red isn't exactly the same, there might be little things here and there, and I feel like people are opposed to that. It's like, it's not cohesive, my army. It's like, it still is. I don't know. That it's all personal preference. Hobby how you like. But I always thought that'd be kind of cool. And even further on that, uh, I got a bunch of the Cities of Sigmar for Warhammer because I love the humans that came out. And I have this idea of like, it's the last bastion of humanity. It's like all the dregs from like leftover from all the battles, and they're coming together as like, the final force. So they all have different gear and they have different, whatever colors. And maybe there's like a symbol that they've painted onto like all their shields or something that unifies them. But otherwise, they're all just ramshackle throwing together what they have, and so they're all different colors. I thought, like a Brentonian scheme from like the old world and Warhammer Fantasy, where there's all super colorful, and each knight is it's different and inspired. I tried another thing on a mini the other day that was kind of cool also that I'm gonna do here. And I saw a lot of canvas painters priming the canvas with like kind of a orange brown, and it just kind of livens up the colors and adds a little warmth. And what I like about it especially is it makes kind of room for like those happy accidents sort of to steal a phrase. Where most of it's going to be covered up, but just the nature of the transparency of paint and everything, it still is showing its effect. And I struggle at first. Before I made the jump, I was like, well, there's a bunch of armor and I don't want it to look rusty, and it really doesn't. I can't show it to you, sorry, it's for like a special thing. Not a dwarf much, but I covered it up mostly, and just a hint of it just sort of like ghosted through the layers, where you can't even tell that it appears orange on there or brown. But if it wasn't there, you would totally notice. And if you look super close, you can find little remaining stuff. But that's the beauty of it. It's like a little vibration where there are, if you really are staring, these little kind of specks or like snowflakey, little bits here and there hidden around that you don't notice from afar, but it like boosts the color. So anyway, I'm going to try that. Just mixed a random thing. And it's going to help opacity. That's the big thing too, because when we layer from dark, sometimes it just takes freaking forever, to get opacity on the values, the higher values. I might make this a little more, and I don't want this super, super bright, but it's more like a mid value. I think I like this one today. So I'm basically, imagine this is black and white. We've all seen that, right? Like a black and white sketch, except not black and white. So it's just like everything that the light hits is going to get some of this. I think I might leave most of this untouched just because it's hidden in here. And then stuff like the stuff that would be in shadow doesn't get this. But... And it works for these guys because they can be kind of rusty if it turns out that way, So. little edge might get hit right there. Basically, most browns are good to support opacity for almost any color because once you're in brown territory, it kind of can have bits of almost any color. So it will support the opacity of almost anything you put on top of it. And this is nice too, because a lot of times when I start a mini, I'm learning the map of the mini. Like I might find a new little element, new pouch, okay, I gotta tackle that. And I'm just learning like how like any value sketch video that you've watched. You know, you're kind of learning how you're gonna map out the light and shadow. So you get a little kind of experience on the mini. And at this early stage, anything we don't like, we can always cover up, so there's pretty much no stakes. Like even here, if I do kind of like a non-metallic on this rim here, I already have some accidentals of where I can sort of place the little reflection flares and stuff. That's what I like about it too. Anything that like just by physically painting, you can have little accidents that pop up and add interest, I'm all for. Like that's a lot of times when I do the non-metallic metal on here, I am placing like specific highlights, but a lot of times I start with this crusty brush because something will sort of happen and you're like, oh well, I got a little flick on like this part, so that can be a secondary thing. I'll follow that line through and do that, or maybe I'll with the next layer erase part of a accident incidental sort of highlight. All the incidentals, that's a good word for it. It's like all the little incidental stuff that happens. It's kind of fun. That's what I like about painting. Is this in focus? I just have like this camcorder here. I don't know if autofocus is better or worse, because I don't want it to be like you on your eyes the whole night. But I'm gonna let that dry. Give me a second. I'm gonna use the bathroom quick. Mark it. So yeah, if you're interested in some of this stuff, I would encourage you to look at like traditional art resources like YouTube, or that's where I started, obviously, but it's just kind of answering those questions. Like, you'll see a lot of many painting videos. It's like, put purple in the shadows, it makes it look way better. And that's true, but it's like, I was thinking, why? Like, what is it doing? And so that's an example of like the one of the early things I heard, right, was mix yellow into your highlights instead of just white. Okay, what is that doing? It's adding warmth. It's kind of environmental effect from the sun, and the complementary color is purple. And it's another dark color that's not black. It's like a Payne's gray. It has good color, but it's dark still for a shadow. And it's boosting any yellow that's on the mini, especially if you put it in highlights. So that's an example of contrast besides like darker and lighter. They always say add contrast to minis. That's another contrast that's boosting the contrast between those complementary colors. Similarly, yeah, I know. And I was recently looking again at like the Craft World Studio style. We all know and love the Craft World Studio style, right? Like if you look at their Instagram and everything, it's like, okay, but what is it? What is that? What is it doing, and why are they doing what they're doing? First of all, they're just very skilled painters. But it's more just saturation in those shadows to add interest. It's an example of like environmental light happening, and kind of almost subliminal colors that boost all the rest of the colors. There's so much interesting theory that goes into it. Which, if you're happy with, hey, I'm gonna put purple on the minis, yeah, do it. I mean, but that's sort of what I've been tackling over the years. So now what's fun too is like, kind of what I consider this point is like, okay, now I can start painting, like for real, air quotes, right? And then look at all this stuff we get to leverage. Now we can just start actually mixing some colors and adding, the details and everything. But we get to leverage all this stuff now. So before I really started to understand some of the theory, sometimes I would just like slap a bunch of color on the model, just all over the place, and then paint over it and see what happens. And there's some cool stuff that happened. I would say generally stay pretty low. Like even the lightest light here is fairly dark, right? So we're gonna layer up from it. So start there, but also don't be afraid. When I would do this, I was almost too dark. Even this is on the verge of like too dark, where it's gonna be hard to kind of see in the end. All right, so now I can think about the mini. It's just a lot of armor, so this will be fun. It's gonna be just like, actually, this is a fun model because, yeah, it'll mostly be like the non-metallic effect that can be really flashy and cool. But we can also just focus on that part. It's like almost one thing on here. It's almost just all metal. So that's kind of fun. You know what I gotta work on too is like my gold, my non-metallic gold. Sometimes it goes too like yellow and not like warm orangey gold. Maybe I'll try that on the shield or something. Alright, let's mix some of these new paints. Oop, that's too much. You'll start to learn too, sometimes it's when you're mixing certain colors, it's like they're different opacities, like how much, what the quantities that you mix can be a little pigment specific, I guess. And what's great too is I was saying before, right? Like we kind of already have a map, so now I'm just kind of going over my map somewhat. Yeah, this wasn't a especially nerdy stream. We just, what time is it? We just spent like how long on? Holy smokes, like an hour on theory that no one asked for. Oopsie. It's kind of leathery actually. See, look at all the cool stuff we were getting done with like a crappy brush, you know? Just letting some incidentals kind of happen. Now I'm just trying to see where the armor versus the belts and stuff are. There we go. Maybe one day I'll do YouTube. I gotta learn how to edit videos. All right, so and look how much work we got done. Now I'm going to the pointy brush, but we've already got a ton of crap done. It's pretty much just when I start to build that map out, and just because of like the physical elements of the 3D model, I have to like get in here and do what I was already planning, but with like the map, and just hit it a little more precisely. See that I just kind of messed up this thing, but that can be a cool reflection. Oh yeah, the streams, if you want to reference them again, are should have the VODs somewhere. So basically, once I have that map, I'm just like drawing shapes of the light based on that. I've already chosen kind of like how the light is playing on it, and I'm just rendering it, you know, more precisely based on any incidental accidents and a little decision, but half and half. Oh, and also I usually, part of my exaggeration is if this view is like I'm doing a light thing here, I'm not even worried about how it's hitting. Like, well, if on the front it's hitting this way, I kind of think of like 4 spotlights. It's like, what's going to be cool and dramatic? And I pretty much just pick a thing that might not even be related to this side, and I'll do it that way. It's kind of fun. It's mostly based on the pose often. Because that's the thing, especially illusions like non-metallic, it's like the master painters did that on a 2D canvas, right? So they can control exactly where all the light is going, and we can't do that. So it's always going to kind of be faking it on 3D minis. So you just have to commit and exaggerate and sell it however you're doing it. And there might be like a weird, awkward view where it looks strange, and that's people's complaint about it most frequently. It's like, oh, I'm not a fan of non-metallic because it doesn't look right. Well, okay. Think of like the Vogue, the photo shoot. Snap, snap, snap. From this side and this side and this side, it's gonna look cool. Now those bones are pants. I think they're pants. And then usually for like a quicker mini like these, for non-metallic and armor, I go to pure white pretty quickly because it's kind of transparent. Just like naturally acrylic paint is pretty transparent. So when this dries, it's actually going to not be white. It's going to be slightly less value than white. So we can keep building up the white, and it's going to make multiple different highlights. So I have this white straight out of the pot right now. It's on a wet palette, I guess, too, which also dilutes it. But see, even these edges, I'm still on the number 2. Like, as long as you have that point, you can get away with it. And I almost think of spots like this like lens flares, like if you were to be taking a photo, where would sort of the flares be? And I'm being pretty generous with this because, again, this isn't even as bright as we'll go. With a non-metallic, one of the most important things is that just the edges, it's like light is going to bounce around until it hits every edge. You know, edge highlighting obviously is key in most miniature painting, but especially non-metallic. Just learning how light bounces around and then faking it. And then the next important thing is contrast, especially really close together. Like, we can leave something like this on this shield where it's really bright edge next to super dark, and then you add like your highlights, your flare spots. That really sells it. It's one of my favorite parts. And that's why, like, a lot of non-metallic videos are like, oh, you're glazing, you're spending all this time. It's like, sure, but just do this, and sometimes you can get away with not doing that. Like, as long as you sell the contrast and the pointed, like, reflected light source. I rarely glaze on these minis, which, if I did more of, like, they would look cool. But I don't do it every time. And see how you can already tell, like, on the armor, pretty much all that orangey brown is covered up. You know, maybe a patch here and there. It's hard to tell, like, with these areas still around, but, like, it's still, we're still leveraging it. Just with, like, it boosts the blue and green in it in the upper layer. I love that. And, you know, I'll still leave some of that behind in some of these spots, because if it does look a little rusty, that's totally cool for this guy. But even if it wasn't supposed to be rusted armor, I might still leave, like, I might cover some larger, like, more noticeable spots, but I love how it adds that vibration, kind of. I'm finding all kinds of, like, little secret edges that I didn't even know to look for. But when I'm just imagining, like, the light and the map of reflections, it's like, oh, gotta hit this little thing, gotta hit this little guy. See, now I'm starting to double. I'm doing an additional layer of white, and it looks even whiter, right? So this whole previous layer was pure white paint. But now we're building up the opacity and it's giving us different variation. And I just could bump the camera real quick, sorry about that. Sorry if you can hear, I don't know if you can hear my weird breathing at all, but I'm kind of like constantly like holding my breath a little bit and I don't notice. So I like breathe kind of hard sometimes. I'm kind of just going around and you can kind of tell my favorite little spots that I'm focusing on. So I kind of have to look around and notice any areas that kind of haven't gotten a lot of love to make sure those are getting their due. And then I think we're soon going to kind of go in reverse and make sure we have those nice hard separation lines for the dark contrast. Maybe get some of these rivets a little more contrasty. So I mixed this dark color with that new burnt sienna and viridian. It's kind of nice. But again, it's like we don't have to use black yet. Like very few shadows in life are black. So it's like, why not use something that we can get a little more mileage out of? Something with a little color. Like if I were to paint anything black, it would be something like way back in here. You know what I mean? Like that's the only thing that would actually be just devoid of any light at all. So that's why I rarely use black. If you want to look more into this style, I guess it's kind of called volumetric highlighting. And again, I would just look at traditional art resources and just look up light, like in drawings. Like basically all we're doing, if you've ever doodled and you draw a circle and you shade it into a sphere, that's all we're doing, because you can pick where the light's coming from, right? And shade it differently to do that. So we're basically drawing, but it's just the light. We already have the shapes and forms. We don't have to draw the shapes and turn them into forms. We're just we're picking a lighting direction and source and situation and drawing what that would look like on the forms. It's basically what it is. So I'm just drawing shapes of light, basically. And so then from there, when you have that down, so basically everything that I'm painting in miniatures is non-metallic metal. Everything I'm painting is object source lighting. Those are just specific situations of light and how it behaves on stuff. So really, if you just learn how light works, you can then observe in a reference photo or something, how does light behave on metal? And so it's in a very exaggerated form of like reflections. But you're doing the same thing when it's cloth, it just, the light doesn't bounce around as much as it does on metal. So you paint it that way. Object source lighting is just they happen to be holding the source of light. Okay, so you're just still drawing light as if it's from that source. How does that look on metal, on clothes? Or if it's off frame, you know, it's really the same thing. You just chose a different lighting situation. I've been thinking about that a lot recently. I'm just like, yeah, so we all have heard the terms NMM and OSL, and just, what if I told you that that's all painting? I was like, huh, yeah, I guess that's kind of true. I said to myself. Because those things are like intimidating. Like I was intimidated for years and years. And then it sort of clicked when I just started studying just light in general. And it's like, oh, I'm just like selling the illusion of light on this material. And then you can pick, and it is an illusion, like I said, because it's 3D, and you can't account for everything. Like what's interesting about like reflections in metal or glass is like the light depends on the viewer's eye. You know how like the reflections will kind of follow you because if the sun is here, you know, arbitrarily in one place, and you were to look at a metal thing, it would like move around, right? So it's always going to kind of be a fake, a fudge, but you're just picking it and selling the crap out of it and exaggerating it because that's why we're painting tiny things, is because we're exaggerating so that it reads on the table. And yeah, that's it. It's another example of a spot that didn't really get a lot of love, so I'll just hit that. All right, I'm gonna move on from the armor. And this is another reason why I love painting, is for the incidentals. It's like I'm not even gonna like this area that I'm painting a different color. I'm not gonna cover up any of the weird bluishness that has gotten all over. Because why? Maybe it will add some cool effects. And if some of this gets slightly on the outside of the shield, okay, it's like kind of reflecting it, you know? If there's a really egregious thing that you don't like, okay, cover it up, but I've tried to teach myself to like not really be afraid of like the little things that are bound to happen in painting that might seem like mistakes. It's like, well, how can we just move forward and cover it up? You know, if I'm doing this metal, I'm gonna have to go back to white. So if there's really something, I can touch up a white with white, like a reflection on the blue or something. I just try not to go back and correct really as little as possible. Like I said, I'm kind of been struggling with like gold. I'm sort of sitting here on the palette, trying to figure it out. And I'll tell you what too, the first time I ever did non-metallic metal was on the stream, like 4 years ago or something. I said, well, I'm sitting here painting, I'm just gonna go for it. And that's just really the best way to do it. I know, you know, minis are expensive, right? We want them to look good. But at a certain point, you just gotta go for it. I find it helps to be like kind of deciding for yourself, like, this mini is going to be my practice mini, and my goal is for me to practice on it. And you know what? It's going to look good too, because you're going to see so many new, brand new things that you haven't tried before. And even if it's not perfect, you're going to love that mini. And if you don't, paint it again, you know? I'm already liking this better than other gold I've done. What's the other one I did quickly? I think I have it here. And like the mini looks fine, it's high contrast, if I can find it. But I think you'll see what I mean, it's like kind of too yellow. Doesn't really look like gold. It looks cool, it looks like a cool scheme. It looks somewhat reflective, but not like a gold to me. Well, that's a good example. It's like, I just left it. It's like, alright, it's not perfect. I'll do it on the next one. Still looks cool. This might be getting into that territory of too yellow. Kind of just added a bunch of white. I kind of want to start, I'm not really seeing the map as well as on the steel stuff. Starting to come in now a little bit more. See, like this little rivet has a bunch of brown on it. It's completely disappeared now and looks weird. But I'm not going to fix it because I know we're going back to white, and I'll just give it a little tap. That's looking sweet. I like that, you know, it helps that the metal, again, this is more of that theoretical stuff. The gold is going to look better next to the bluish steel, and the bluish steel is going to look better next to the yellow gold. They're going to boost each other, team up. And also the sculpt is awesome. It's really easy to just sort of tap the brush around and hit awesome details and get high contrast because of how nice the sculpt is. This is Die Hard Miniatures, my favorite skeletons. This is from a new edition, kind of a new set from the Skeletons range. Now again, I'm just kind of going straight to white, and it's going to look still a little goldish because it has a slight transparency, and underneath is that yellowish. So So I'm just like imagining a path of light. Like, see on like a helmet here, I'm kind of doing this thing. So I'm just like imagining this whole, I'm literally painting right now. My brush is on the mouth. I'm literally imagining this big path of light and then kind of blooming out from there. You know? See, and I still had a little yellow on the brush here. I'm going to leave that. It's kind of cool. Maybe I'll throw some of that even around. Just a little vibration. Maybe it's sunny. Alright, and there's very little bone here, so maybe I'll kind of use some of this goldish color that's on the palette and I'll kind of link the bone to that. So now here, bone is really bright, right? That's what I'm talking about, like opacity over dark. I'm just gonna kind of get like a mid and just build up opacity. Otherwise it will just take forever to get it to work. As long as we have some of that brownishness, might as well. Let me get the ratty brush for that base. And I'm running out of it. So I know it looks kind of weird in color, but we're just kind of like moving up in value to get opacity. And we're doing a contrast thing where it's much warmer. This doesn't look like bone yet, but it's much warmer than the armor. So it will be kind of like a neat contrast. Some of that warmth on this guy in here. And even a color like this can actually kind of work for bone. Like one of my favorite bones I did was I got a couple Warhammer blisters of the ghouls that were my first models that I ever painted that my cousins got for me, for like for a birthday or Christmas or something. And there's one of them that's holding this bone above his head, and I was like, what if it was like an ancient like fossilized bone, where if he were to like attack someone with it, it would just disintegrate. So I was looking up like old dug up bones, and a lot of them were very, very orange. You know, just over time and being under the earth and mixed in a little bit of that burnt sienna, which is a reddish tone, just to move it away from this gold on the shield. We have enough on there where, you know, it's a good practice to, like, if one color is on a painting, put it somewhere else too. Helps like the cohesion and stuff. But now I'm going to just move away from it a little more. Now some of this new bone stuff, mixtures I mean, I'll put around some of the other stuff. Don't want to worry too much about this element. It's not the most exciting part. Putting some light kind of bouncing up in the shadow areas. It still has to be fairly dark. Oh, that's right. Were these pants? Use some of that iridium. Pretty close to the armor, so let's see here. Little flowers or something. Alright, and I'm going to do one more step. I'm trying this out. It is a heavy body acrylic, titanium white, same paint as the white we've been using, except it is just thicker, so we can get kind of spot opacity. And for the first time, I've been using the 2 and the crapo the whole time. I'll get the small one out and just sort of exaggerate our map a little bit more here and there. Again, kind of imagining those lens flares. So it's okay if it's a little blobby, especially on these minis that will be on the game table far away. It's okay if it's like, you know, a bit of a blob like it would be in a photo where there's like a really hot reflection. It's kind of how I picture it. Alright, we'll do the victory lap around the base. And there we have it. Oh yeah, I guess we are running late. I was just having fun painting. But I just did the victory lap around the base room, so here we are. Oh yes, of course. I recently bought an unpainted mini, dreading the fact I'm gonna have to paint it. Haven't painted a model in many years. Any advice? Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out how not to dread it as a brand new beginner. Um, just what part are you hesitating the most about? Like the best part about paint is that it covers paint, you know. If it looks like crap, you can always paint over it. A lot of people they strip the paint off and the alcohol. Just repaint. Just like throw some primer on it again if you want, or a base coat or something. You know, you can always go back and adjust. But let's see, where are you starting from? Like, do you have supplies? Are you need a shopping list or how to start the painting part or like where are you at? I was looking, I was trying to find where I put this one model I wanted to show you. Oh, so this is something that I was first kind of experimenting with, like just like how can you leverage just like random colors incidentally to like boost other things? And my favorite part about this face is all like the weird incident. Like at the end, I just kind of hit it with like really, really bright blue and yellow, but thin and really select areas, you know? And it just adds something, really adds something, makes it kind of vibrate. Well, you painted an army. That's a good start. That's awesome. I guess I'm going to start with things I would avoid. Avoid buying a bunch of stuff. Usually, a different tool or a different paint isn't going to magically solve any problems that you have. Try to be just, if you have tools, paints and stuff, like learn to use those instead of buying a bunch of stuff that you see like on YouTube. But I guess I would just start with base shade highlight. You've probably seen this before, you've probably done it on an army. But if you're just getting used to, okay, cool. You're just getting used to like putting paint on the model, just think of it almost like a coloring book. Block it in, block in the colors. Almost like an action figure. And just get them really opaque. And that's gonna make it look nice and clean and neat. And I think you're gonna be satisfied with how it looks. You know, just come up with color schemes. Even like look at like swatches online, like color scheme little mixers, you know, and see what you just visually like and settle on a scheme that you kind of have a little confidence in behind you. you know, don't start willy-nilly. Even I don't. I'm staring at a thing and I'm thinking about the color scheme. You know, I don't just start painting and go on the fly. You know what I mean? Um, but then once you have your scheme down, in mind at least, you can always be spontaneous and change it. But base, shade, highlight. Just get really neat layers. If you have to, thin your paints with a small amount of water, just so it's not super thick. And just get really neat base coats on every surface, every material, the separation, and then try out a wash. 3 kobolds in a trench coat. That's awesome. That sounds like it would take a wash really well because there's probably a lot of like details close together, crunched up. So I would say you could try a black wash if it's primarily cool in color. It sounds like trench coat and kobolds will be warmer, so try like a dark brown wash. And then from there, what you can do is just hit edges with the original colors that you base coated in. So base coat neatly, like coloring book style, wash, and then you can fix and highlight going back to that original pot of paint, and it will appear brighter. And then from there, if you really want to, you can, you know, mix in a little white or bright yellow for some highlights. But technique-wise, what I would do is let the texture of the model work for you. It's 3D, we don't have to paint on canvas and draw every texture. So just use the angle of the brush. And by that I mean you're doing perpendicular. You don't do a pencil, because that's, you know, all wobbly. What you want to focus on is light downward pressure. Think of a feather duster, little feather dust motion. And do a perpendicular angle, letting the texture, the raised texture, grab the paint off. Because you just shaded it with a wash, right? So you have your shadows down. And this is going to make it pop. And you don't have to be precise. You don't have to have steady hands even. What you want to do is points of contact. You're on the table. Your forearms are on the table. Your wrists are together. You're holding a mini. You have leverage right here, point of contact. Right? How many points of contact? That's how you make your hands steady. Because if you're floating, you're not, even if you have generally steady hands, you're not going to be precise. You want to have as many points of contact as possible, so you have this control, right? So if you're feeling kind of wobbly, just make a different point of contact. And also, for that matter, I would recommend trying a handle. This is literally just, I use pill bottles, paint things. This is poster tack. Like if you were to hang a poster, you can find it at really cheap at any like drugstore or hardware store usually. Find the most comfortable position for your hand for doing the perpendicular. And then don't move your hand. Don't be trying to get in there like this. Switch the model around. So if this is where you're comfortable and you have points of contact, then make the angle of the model work for the angle of your brush, not the other way around. Don't be holding it in one place and doing all this. You can swap it around. Yeah. Let's try a little something. So this is the perpendicular angle, right? I'm thinking light downward pressure, and just let the texture do the work for you by grabbing the paint. I'm not pressing downward hardly at all. I'm keeping the brush perpendicular to the model. See how we're still leaving like the recesses behind nicely? So once you do your base coats, and then you get your shadows with the wash to hit all the nice recesses, you preserve them by doing this. Even this fine like chainmail right here, right? And this isn't even dry brushing. You might have heard of dry brushing. I'm not rubbing off any paint really. I'm just using light pressure. See how I'm flipping it around? And we get all that. Does that make sense? So there might be areas that are appropriate for dry brushing. If you haven't heard that, you just get thick paint out of the tube, undiluted, you know, rub it off on a paper towel so that there's very little paint left. And, you know, there's so little paint left on the brush that it, you know, lets you get that that effect of like the texture grabbing the paint off, but you don't have to rub the paint off. People try to do like really tiny areas with dry brushing. If you have the control and you have your points of contact and you have your angle, you don't actually need to rub off a lot of paint to get a dry brushy thing. Just let the model do it for you. See that? And then if you have some messy areas, you can always come back with your wash, the same thing that you used in the previous step, and you can do it selectively. You know, a wash is, I'm sorry if you know this already, but just like you're gonna have a really dilute paint and you're gonna just douse the thing so that it physically runs into the recesses. You can also use this belt here, if we want to separate the belt a little better, go back as one of your last steps and get that same wash that's nice and diluted for you. And you can just draw it if you want a certain area that you're not happy with to have better separation. Now this is where we're getting into precision. So how do we get that? Points of contact. That's all it is. And then the angle of the model versus the brush. If it's hard and weird, try switching one of those things. And you might not have a brush that's like pointy enough for that, so when in doubt, just, you know, still do a smaller area of wash and then go back to your perpendicular angle and try to lightly hit the detail again. And you can do it that way too. Incredible. I'm glad you're not dreading it. Miniature painting is a lot of fun. If you use Discord, we have a bunch of people in the community that are fellow painters, and they are absolutely fabulous and will answer any questions that you may have in your journey. You can tag me at Hamster. Thank you, Finley. There's the link. You can tag me at Hamster, and I will see your question then, and I can try to answer it as you go. Post pictures. If you run into hiccups, take a picture and be like, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is what's happening. Tag me. Other people will help you as well. And yeah. Now, I don't recognize your user. Are you here just for you saw painting miniatures, or are you familiar with Dwarven Forge terrain? For sure. Yeah, no pressure. Just if you need help, we're there. A lot of friendly people. Okay, so you know Dorm Forge. So you know the deal with the channel. It's not just me in my apartment painting my toys. Incredible. But yeah, if you haven't seen this show before, I try to do it every Thursday here. It's 6 p.m. Eastern, and you can ask questions then if you happen to be here to watch. But yeah, definitely tag me in the Discord if you have more questions. And best of luck to you. That's exciting. It'll be fun, no matter how, even if it's frustrating, once you put down that first painted mini on the table, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I am running late here, so I am going to log off, but thank you so much for hanging out with me, and we will see you next week. Have a good night, everybody.